and we are hearing about Acyutananda and his friend Pusta Krishna. And Acyutananda is going more deeper in his practice of Krishna consciousness. Yeah, he's not satisfied, so therefore he's going deeper into his study, inquiring from his spiritual authorities, etc. Anyway, so let's just offer prayers to Prabhupada. We can continue this amazing story. Namo Om Vishnu Padaya Krishna Vastai Bhutale Shrimati Bhakti Vedanta Swami Namane Namaste Saraswati Devi Gauravani Charini Devasesha Sunyavadi Pushtatara Satami Jai Sri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhar Shiva Sari Gaura Bhaktavrinda Hare Krishna 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 Hare Hare Ram Hare Ram Ram Hare Hare. Okay, Hare Krishna. We're ready. We have 9 devotees with us this evening. Thank you for joining us.
Hare Krishna, Prabhu, what page are we reading from, please?
Don't know.
737.
73.
Yeah, I've got you got
okay.
it?
Thank you. Yeah, 730. Thank you.
So, Nava Lavanga, you like to read? Your hand is up there.
Yeah. We're starting where he's
It's the green. I've got this bookmark here. Yeah, there's still a problem with your sound, you know.
Yeah, I don't know what I can do about that.
Okay, anyway, if nothing can be done,
you can hear me now?
Yeah, we can hear you.
Okay, I'll start reading.
Yeah.
He systematically studied Srila Prabhupada's books, and he felt the need, and with Pusta Krishna's permission, he read translations of books by previous Gaudiya acharyas. He read Chaitanya Charitamrita with great relish, and when he remembered the places of the Lord's pastimes, it was as if he were actually in Mayapur or Puri. He also read books about Krishna's pastimes and gradually became familiar with Krishna's companions and their moods of devotion. When he chanted japa or kirtan, the forms of Lord Chaitanya and Lord Krishna appeared in his mind. Sometimes when he was alone, he would chant into the late hours of the night, never satiated by the sweet sound of Krishna's names. Many senior devotees visited the yatra, but Acyutananda would talk confidentially, only with only those he knew well, Pushta Krishna, Gaura Hari, and another elderly devotee. With Pushta Krishna, he would speak philosophy, and with Gaura Hari about Krishna's pastimes. Inevitably, however, Acyutananda's talks turned to the all-merciful Lord Chaitanya. Devotees at the stage of steadiness chant the holy name imbued with the form of the Lord. Acyutananda's mood of service, which was ruled by regulative practice, drew his absorption more to Lord Chaitanya than to Lord Krishna. Such attraction is natural, but devotees should not minimize one form of the Lord to favor the other. Gaura and Krishna are simply different forms of the one Godhead who possesses different moods. They are both equal and both eternal. Acyutananda had given up material enjoyment, and Krishna, true to his promise, had reciprocated by bestowing on him a taste for pure devotional service. Acyutananda performed his duties as before, but actually lived by the taste he derived from preaching, chanting, and hearing. He could not get enough. Yet he was careful not to enter the realms of sadhana that were over his head. He continued to chant japa with the devotees and to concentrate on hearing the sound of the holy names. At times before chanting, he would remember the occasional pastimes of Krishna, and while chanting, he would remember the meaning of the mantra and beg for eternal service. Yet he dared not think of what service that would be, or what form he would have in which to render that service. Acyutananda had mentioned a short book published by Bhaktivinoda Thakur describing Lord Chaitanya's eightfold daily pastimes. Sometimes these pastimes would appear in his mind when he was chanting japa. Still, he would make no effort to invoke these remembrances. What did come of its own accord was an irrepressible joy from his remembrance of Lord Chaitanya's and Lord Krishna's qualities. He cried when he considered Chaitanya Mahaprabhu's kindness in giving the topmost treasure to the lowest of men. As Acyutananda's absorption in Krishna's divine qualities increased, his reticence to think about the Lord's Vrindavan pastimes melted away. At the stage of taste, devotees chant the name of Krishna imbued with this form and qualities. Devotees on the path of regulative devotion are reserved in their meditation on the Lord's pastimes. For example, they may avoid Krishna's Vrindavan pastimes and think only of Lord Chaitanya's, or they may avoid making an effort to remember pastimes altogether, waiting for them to spontaneously appear in their minds. Or even when pastimes appear spontaneously, such devotees may be afraid to delve into them. As the heart becomes purified, however, attraction to Krishna increases, because all devotees naturally hear of Krishna directly and through Lord Chaitanya's pastimes. An attachment, asakti, dawns. Even the mind of a regulative devotee becomes drawn to thoughts of Krishna and his companions.
Okay, perhaps let's pause there. Quite a bit there. I think in our discussions, we've described these principles. We've had many discussions on the practice of Raganuga Sadhan, the practice of Raganuga Sadhan, and different levels of devotional service at hearing and chanting. Is there any questions from here? I'm just scrolling up and down again, so I'll get.
So what stage is Acyutananda at the moment here?
Now, Acyutananda, he's not at the stage of Raganuga Sadhan. Yeah. The pastimes are coming to mind, but he's hesitant to, as it said here, he's hesitant to delve into them. That means his practice is characterized by rules and regulations.
Is he at taste, yeah?
Yeah, if I've understood it. Yeah, definitely he's at Nishta and beyond taste, at Ruchi. He's at the stage of Ruchi as far as I can understand. He's at the stage of Ruchi, where his friend, Pusta Krishna, he is more attracted to the direct cultivation of Raganuga Sadhan. And he's not at all hesitant to meditate upon Krishna's pastimes. Whereas Acyutananda is a bit more reserved in that regard. Chanting the holy names, the names and forms and pastimes may come to his mind, but he's afraid to delve into them. So there's these two paths. Then Maharaj mentions that whatever, if one, like Acyutananda, he will come to the stage of spontaneous attraction when he comes to the stage of asakti and bhava. And he's not made any specific endeavor to practice Raganuga Sadhan as his friend Pusta Krishna has done. But he will come through chanting the holy name. He will come to the stage of spontaneous attraction, and therefore Raganuga Sadhan. But his friend, again, Pusta Krishna, I think as we read a bit earlier, I think it might be coming, or just earlier, where he's the one who's encouraging Acyutananda to go in this direction. But Acyutananda is a bit hesitant. So he's at the stage of Ruchi. So is that okay? As far as I understand, he's at the stage of Ruchi.
Yeah, that's great. Thank you.
But you understand the dynamic that's actually going on here. So he's reticent. He's a bit reticent. Rightly so in one sense. He's approaching it. He's reticent to think of the Lord's pastimes. But gradually, as he becomes, it described, I'm just reading this sentence here actually, just highlights it. As Acyutananda's absorption in Krishna's divine qualities increased, his reticence to think about these pastimes melts away. So he's coming from ruchi to asakti. Right? Anybody else in this section? Let me just scroll back to the previous.
I was just thinking about him, how, like we've studied in the book, how he's slowly advancing in his spiritual life, you know, like he was explaining. These thoughts are coming, but he's like not doing anything about it.
Yeah, that's it. Yeah, that's it. You could describe it like that.
Till
So,
it will automatically come.
yeah, that's it. And that's what I said. So
Yes.
other than, yeah, other devotees will approach it a different way. They will immediately want to meditate on Krishna's pastimes, etc. But everyone will come to that stage if they're sincerely following the process of Krishna consciousness.
Can we think that he's got a bit of humility because that's why he's taking it like steadily?
We could say that he's more cautious.
More, like
We
more.
could say that if you want. I don't know what others think. You could say it's not directly said here, but it definitely he's being cautious. He's approaching it with. Could say he's approaching the subject with humility.
Yes.
Yeah, good point. Yeah. All right, so I've been scrolling around a bit. Let's get where we were. Okay. So perhaps I think Chandravalima, you had your hand for reading, I think. So,
Would you like to tell me where we are?
here, one day Gaura Hari said to Acyutananda. Is that the right place? I think it is.
Because I'm reading from the book.
Yeah.
One day Gaura Hari said to Acyutananda, Lord Chaitanya's desire is that his followers think of Krishna's eternal pastimes. You are a mature Gaura Bhakta. You should do what he wants. Acyutananda replied, sometimes I do think of those pastimes, yet I feel shy to plunge into them as you do. Gaura Hari just laughed. Acyutananda continued, I enjoy singing the songs of Narottam Das Thakur and Bhaktivinoda Thakur, and I have read every book you have given me, but my heart tells me to wait. Maybe it is because I worship Gonitai and you worship Radha and Krishna. Srila Prabhupada wrote in Krishna book, Gaura Hari pressed with a sweet smile. That devotee can read Krishna Bhavanamrita Maha Kavya. But he said it was for exalted devotees, replied Acyutananda, not for me. Gaura Hari chuckled and looked at the life-size picture of Radha Krishna altar on his wall. But don't you feel separation from them? As usual, Gaura Hari had pressed a button that opened the door to an unexplored chamber in Acyutananda's heart. That night, Acyutananda sat alone in his small downtown room and gazed at a painting of Radha and Krishna seated beneath Vrindavan's autumn moon. He chanted softly on his beads. The temple was quiet because everyone else was asleep. Yes, he had to admit that he had begun to feel strong separation from the divine couple. A verse by Prabodhananda and Saraswati Thakur hung beneath the picture. Service to Lord Chaitanya bestows service to Srimati Radharani. Is this happening to me? He murmured. Acyutananda looked at the picture of Lord Chaitanya embracing the leper Vasudev, whose deformed body was transformed into a spiritual one. Would this also happen to him? Acyutananda's heart was a battleground of contradictory emotions. On one side, he yearned for Radha and Krishna. On the other, his mind constantly constrained him with reservation. To imagine one's spiritual form in a conditioned state is material desire, Maya. But he was not imagining his spiritual form. He was simply hankering for the shelter of Radha and Krishna as lotus feet. Thinking and hearing of their pastimes would mitigate the pain of his separation. The more his intelligence protested, the more his heart yearned for Vraj. In the end, Acyutananda resolved to speak with Pushta Krishna Prabhu. That was Guru Maharaj's order. But during the morning program, before Acyutananda could speak to Pushta Krishna, he received a phone call from Silavati. She was full of anxiety as she related a conversation she had had with Gaura Hari. On his last shopping trip to Vrindavan, my husband...
Just 1 second,
Yeah.
there's a note there, there's a footnote.
Oh, sorry.
This is, yeah, it's my fault.
Where is it?
Yeah, go on, you can read that, the footnote, yeah.
You may read it. Prabodhananda Saraswati writes in Chaitanya Charitamrita 88, one who is extremely fortunate may get the mercy of Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. As much as a person can devote full attention to the lotus feet of Lord Chaitanya, to that extent the taste of nectarine service of the lotus feet of Srimati Radharani in Vrindavan will manifest itself. And the more a person engages in the service of Sri Chaitanya, the more nectarine taste of service to Sri Radha in Vrindavan manifests itself.
Yeah, so this is a nice verse. I think it was been quite prominent over the last 10 years or so. I know my Guru Maharaj often refers to it, and not other senior devotees. Yata yata Gaudapada Vinde Vineti Bhaktin Krita Punya Rasi Tata Tato Shakti Hridaya Kasmat Radha Padam Bojo Sadam So Rasi. So simply by our sincere, humble service to the mission of Lord Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, whatever form that may take. For some, that service to the mission of Lord Chaitanya Mahaprabhu may be frontline service, say distributing books. For others, it may be maintaining temples. For others, it may mean deity service. For others, it may mean management of temples, or for others, it may mean farm. It's all part of Lord Chaitanya's Sankirtan movement. So what's being explained here, it's that service to Lord Chaitanya Mahaprabhu that is now within the Acyutananda, he's feeling separation from Radha Krishna. And this is a real, this feeling separation of Radha Krishna that he's experiencing is not something that he's imposing, because that's how we should feel. He's actually really feeling it. Just as, I can say a mundane example if you want. Well, not mundane because we're devotees, but you may, you may say your friend who you hold dear, is away for some time and you're missing them. And then when you see them again, you're feeling very invigorated. But there's a real feeling there. So Acyutananda, he's really feeling an attachment and therefore a separation. And the only thing that can soften these pangs of separation is meditating on Radha Krishna. Yeah. So he's doing it to mitigate the pangs of separation. Yeah, Vipalamba and Sambhoga. Okay.
Mm-hmm.
You can continue as less as any comments or questions on that. Hopefully we're all following.
Shall I read what during the morning program?
Yeah. Now a little twist comes into the story.
Yeah, I want to. But during the morning program, before Acyutananda could speak to Pushta Krishna, he received a phone call from Silavati. She was full of anxiety as she related a conversation she had had with Gaura Hari. On his last shopping trip to Vrindavan, my husband took re-initiation from a Radha Kunda babaji. Acyutananda was shocked. Silavati pleaded, please come and talk to him. He says that since the temple will kick him out anyway, he's going to India as soon as he can. Acyutananda gathered his wits enough to reassure her, and after she had hung up, he went straight to his room. How was this possible? Gaura Hari was impulsive, but not crazy. He was Rasika, but he knew the Gaudiya Siddhanta. He's too eager to know his Siddhabdeha. Yeah, Acyutananda thought. He remembered the disciple who had asked Srila Prabhupada's blessing to take initiation from Radha Kunda babaji. Srila Prabhupada had become furious and had cursed him, something he had never done before. He must save Gaura Hari from this offense to Srila Prabhupada, to his own guru, and to ISKCON. Acyutananda packed some clothes, thought again, and then added some relevant books. Gaura Hari was stubborn. If Acyutananda were to be successful in his mission, it would take more than a few hours, and he wanted scriptural ammunition to present to Gaura Hari. This would not be an easy task. Acyutananda was right.
If you can read, there's a footnote there, if you read that.
Okay. In a conditioned state, even advanced devotees can make mistakes. Or
Is that the right footnote? It says here, devotees.
the only footnote I've got in my book.
Okay, let me just read from here.
Read that, yeah.
Devotees, even spontaneous devotees, must only read,
yes.
chant,
Okay.
and remember topics for which they are qualified. Sway, dikara, yanishta. When for any reason devotees stray from this principle, especially out of a premature desire for siddha-deha, like Gaura Hari, they disturb their own spiritual life as well as the spiritual life of others. Right, is there any
And
comments or questions here on this?
I'm thinking you could explain a bit, like how does one get into? I could see that Gaura Hari was into different thinking, Radha Krishna and.
Yeah, actually, I got the characters mixed up. It was I was mentioning Pusta Krishna.
No.
Actually, it was Gaura Hari who was more encouraging him on the Raganuga southern direction. And he would see Gaura Hari himself. Now let's just scroll back. Yeah. He has become, and interesting, Maharaj speaks of it as an offense, and he brings up this this specific incident. We can imagine it, where one disciple of Prabhupada, he went to Prabhupada, and more or less he said words along the line of that, I can only get so far under your as your disciple. Now I want to advance further. Please, can you give me blessings to get initiation from a Radha Kunda babaji? I mean, if there's anything you can say to create an offense. So Prabhupada, and as mentioned here, I forget the words of the curse, but Prabhupada cursed him. Something like, I curse you for 100 million births to never get love of Krishna.
Wow.
Something along those lines.
Wow.
He said that?
Yeah, he cursed him like that. A specific curse.
Wow.
Prabhupada was so angry.
Wow.
That was such an insult to Prabhupada, not just to Prabhupada, but to Bhaktisiddhanta and the whole mission. So, and that's what's being cited here. He remembered the disciple had asked Prabhupada's blessing to take initiation with Radha Kunda babaji, and he cursed him. Perhaps I'll do some research, find out exactly what that curse was, but it was along those lines that I curse you to never, something like I curse you to never have a bona fide guru for millions of lifetimes.
Wow. Muli Prabhu, I can see somebody who is into a real Radha Krishna mood, and they are really desperate to find out their Siddharupa.
Yeah.
Then because they feel that Prabhupada is not given, though Prabhupada has given so much. If you really, like now that you're teaching us, when you listen to purports of Srila Prabhupada, you can see, oh, okay, this is Bhava platform, this Nishta platform. You can like figure it out, right?
Yeah.
He has given a lot, but some people can get misled when their mission is to find out who am I in Radha Krishna Leela back home, and then from Radha Kunda babaji, they are all into more that kind of thing, isn't it?
Yeah.
You could quite easily go there, I'm thinking, get attracted to that kind of mood. If you remember, I said to you once when I was going to listen to these classes, and how they were talking about Radharani's hair and how they was combing and how, it could, like, to me, because I'm not at that stage, so I like, they want to listen too much, so I stopped going. But a person who is at that level or feeling that could quite easily get tangled into that thinking.
Yeah, and although this is quote unquote a fictitious story in one sense, but what has been explained here has happened, not just to one person, but a few. So this is the this is the misconception or misunderstanding of someone who really hasn't understood Prabhupada and that he has given everything. So, in other words, perfection can be achieved to the highest stages of prema by, as we discussed, by actually following and serving Lord Chaitanya Mahaprabhu's Sankirtan movement. So it could say it's a bit of mode of passion here on the case of, is it Gaura Hari? Is a bit passionate and not willing yet to artificially try and go down that path. You could say it's a bit, and now he's going to incur offenses to Prabhupada's line. It's going to take him some time to actually get over it. Anyway, anyone else any comments on that? I mean, this is the big, well, not a deep big conception. We don't all have that misconception, but some people do, because externally it seems, it just seems externally it looks like there's something of substance there, but actually internally there's nothing of substance there. In the case of the classic Radha Kunda babajis, they live a very renounced, so-called some renounced life. So to the uneducated, to those who don't have so much deep knowledge, then it may seem attractive. Sorry, I interrupted someone there. They wanted to ask a question.
Hare Krishna, Prabhu.
Be my mother. Hare Krishna. Hope you're better.
I don't know whether you will understand me.
Right.
I have a question.
Yeah.
I was feeling Gaura Hari's mood should be more humbling. He, as you mentioned, it's like cannot be passionate to find out things. This is not like a material thing. So his humbling mood was not there.
Yeah. Your voice sounds weak. I guess you're recovering. Yeah, as Mother Chandravali pointed out, he said that was it Chandravali?
He's humbling. He has to be more humble than he is. That's what I felt.
Yeah, I mean, I agree. Yeah. See, Acyutananda is a bit more cautious, but his being a bit more cautious is the best path. You know, Gaura Hari is being a bit impulsive.
Yeah.
He's being a bit impulsive. So this is the result of being impulsive and impatient. Yeah, thank you. Yeah, for bringing that out again. Yeah. Right, so I've been scrolling up and down.
And that cause Gaura Hari's position, can it be caused by him being, in a way, senior to Acyutananda? And
yeah,
like,
interesting. He's as far as I understand, he's senior, I think.
yes.
Yeah, Gaura Hari's. It could be, yeah.
I'm just thinking we have to be careful with everything, you know. I'm thinking myself from that kind of way.
Yeah, see, when one is entering into these realms of ruchi and the shakti, one has to be very careful because one can get misled. So at this, like in every stage of Krishna consciousness, there should be consultation. At this stage, the consultation is more I say it's more needed at this stage. This is where the real, real questions should be. These are the real questions that should be asked to the spiritual master. The stages of ruchi and bhakti, where one's feeling attraction to Krishna's pastimes, or their specific mood and meditation when they're chanting, and the conclusions they're coming to, and the attractions they are feeling. This, I remember one time my Guru Maharaj, this was many years ago, and he actually made an announcement that I will no longer be answering any questions in regards to devotees having trouble following the 4 regulative principles. In other words, he's saying he's had enough of that. He wants his disciples to ask different types of questions. In other words, questions of this caliber.
More
Yeah. He said that guiding devotees to follow the 4 regulative principles, and he was pointing out to some of us, or that doesn't have to be done by me. That can be done by anyone who's been practicing and is following the regulative principles. That doesn't have to come to me. Who's making that statement? So the point is that Gaura Hari, he should have consulted. He has what's the word? He has done something impulsive, something sudden and impulsive. So really, we should have consulted with Pustu Krishna, other senior devotees, and they would have advised him accordingly. So yes, shiksha at this stage is very much, of course, shiksha also comes from the Lord within at this stage, but whatever comes from within, that should be verified by the Vaishnavas as well.
Because at one point, Gaura Hari was telling Acyutananda to get more into this pastimes of Radha and Krishna, and then Acyutananda said, no, I'm not quite ready for that yet.
Yeah.
So obviously he was not ready, but he was into that mood.
Yeah. Also, interestingly, at the stage of ruchi and the shakti, he is qualified, but he's being careful. He's being cautious and he's being careful.
Yeah. Which is the way to do Krishna conscious, isn't it?
Yeah, that's it. It's the way to cross the road, isn't it? You have to be cautious and careful in this world, isn't it? When we go shopping, whatever we're doing, we have to be cautious and careful that we don't get robbed, we don't get run over, etc. So definitely in spiritual life, we have to be, but not to, again, it's interesting discussion, because we shouldn't be so cautious that we never ever dare think of Radha and Krishna. Then we've gone the other way, If we never dare even, as soon as we hear the word Radha Krishna, or as soon as someone recites one pastime, we just walk out the room, We have to be, you understand what I'm saying here? You have to be cautious, but at the same time, you have to acknowledge the taste we're getting, but we should consult.
Okay, even if you are getting taste, meaning you going that way, reading, hearing, you attract to
Raganuga Sadhan, you're reading about Krishna's pastimes and you're doing it to cultivate your bhajan. Yeah. All right. Should we read?
Yes.
Let's read on this adventure, see how things are going to unfold. Let's see who else is there for reading out there. Sahachari, you had your hand up there, I think I saw. Yeah.
Thank you. Acyutananda was right. It wasn't easy to convince Gaura Hari that he had strayed from the path of pure devotion, much less convince him that his learned realized Babaji Guru was not fully representing Lord Chaitanya's mission. You just don't know what you're talking about, argued Gaura Hari. But Acyutananda did know what he was talking about. Without personally attacking Gaura Hari or his newfound Babaji Guru, Acyutananda presented 2 objective and substantial arguments. The first was that the Babajis considered Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati and his followers, namely Srila Prabhupada, deviants from Lord Chaitanya's line. The second was that the Babaji's practice of offering Siddha Pranali and Manjari Bhava to conditioned souls, a practice that at one time was suitable for advanced intermediate devotees, had proven itself to be too prone to corruption and thus no longer viable. The Achilles heel in Gaura Hari's argument was his attachment to Srila Prabhupada. Everything else aside, Gaura Hari, do you really think Prabhupada is a deviant? Gaura Hari would not reply. He stubbornly fingered his beads, but when pressed, he answered amid a shower of tears, no, Srila Prabhupada could never deviate an inch from the truth. From this point on, Gaura Hari defenses crumbled. After 3 days of discussion, he considered that he had been a fool and had made a grave mistake. I wanted to know my Manjari Swarupa and got carried away. By Krishna's mercy, Gaura Hari's illusion dispersed and he finally fell at his friend's feet, crying, please help me. Please save me from my offenses to my Guru Maharaj and to Srila Prabhupada. I don't want any Swarupa outside Srila Prabhupada's line. The only other devotee to know about Gaura Hari's brush with the Babajis was the president of the farm. He spoke at great length with Gaura Hari to ensure that his head pujari was really back to his old self and not only pretending. When he was convinced, he instructed Gaura Hari to call his spiritual master in India and explain everything. He also told Gaura Hari to write a letter to the Babaji repudiating his initiation and his connection with him. Just tell him you made a mistake. Everything you want is in ISKCON. Once you do that, he continued, I will tell a GBC what has happened. There would be no need for anyone else to know. As far as making it up to Srila Prabhupada and Radha Krishna, he concluded, you will have to do that yourself. Acyutananda stayed on for an extra week.
Just read the footnote there. You'll see at the bottom of the page.
Yeah. In the conditioned state, even advanced devotees can make mistakes or become illusioned. Still, if devotees transgress Vaishnava conduct, they must acknowledge their mistakes, regret them, and beg forgiveness from all the devotees who were affected by the offense. By the Vaishnava's grace, devotees may then be reinstated in the original position.
I'll just make a comment here, just that Gaura Hari and Acyutananda, they are friends. They if I remember rightly, they both joined at the same time. Gaura Hari joined being a married devotee, being married to Shilavati, and Acyutananda became a brahmachari. Yeah, just for that clarification. And you remember we was speaking about this Babajis, and they claiming ISKCON to be a deviant society. Do you remember we discussed that? We went, we got into that a little bit.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, so that Maharaj is then restating that again. Yeah, and how this system of Siddha what's it called, Siddha Deha, is not relevant today for various reasons. So he's made a mistake, and he's done the right thing now. He's begging for forgiveness. Yeah. All right. Unless there's any questions or comments, you can continue.
Okay. Acyutananda stayed for an extra week with Gaura Hari. Normally confident and happy-go-lucky, Gaura Hari seemed insecure and despondent. As the gravity of his mistake and the errant psychology behind it sunk in, he felt the increasing burden of his guilt. But a second call to Bhakti Prabhava Swami gave him hope for the future of his spiritual life. It would take time for Gaura Hari to again sport his ready smile and twinkling eyes. But when they did return, they carried a kind of maturity and gravity they had lacked before. Some devotees said that he had finally grown up. Others joked, well, at 50, it's about time. It took some years for Gaura Hari to regain the level of taste and absorption he had once had for remembering Krishna's pastimes or reading books about them. In the meantime, he took full shelter of his service to Radha and Krishna, but his spontaneous attachment could not be subdued forever. In time, he again began to remember Krishna's eightfold daily pastimes carefully. When he did, vivid scenes of Vrajalila appeared in his mind, and he knew that such remembrance was only possible because merciful Srila Prabhupada and Lord Chaitanya had forgiven him.
I just mention a point here that he has begged for forgiveness of offenses, but there will be some time before Prabhupada and Lord Chaitanya will actually forgive him, in the sense that it took him years to gain the level of taste and absorption he had before. You understand? So he had made an offense, he had begged for forgiveness, which is the right thing to do, but the reactions for that offense is carrying on for Gaura Hari. But he knows why, and he's sincere, and he's continuing to follow. So eventually, by continuing to chant the holy name, then that will again touch Lord Chaitanya's heart and Srila Prabhupada, and again he will get the taste. So I want to make that one point, that it's not as if as soon as he begged for forgiveness, then his taste was automatically there again. No, it took a few years, because it's quite a grave offense, actually. Right, just for anything on that, otherwise can continue.
Okay. The Babaji was a warning not only to Gaura Hari, but to Acyutananda as well. At least Acyutananda took it as such. It reinforced his already cautious attitude about meditating on Krishna's pastimes and entering the realm of relationships, rasa. But his Siksha Guru, Pushta Krishna, advised him that knowledge of prayojana, the truth of the goal of Krishna consciousness, would not only familiarize him with his desired objective, but protect him from the many pitfalls that arise from ignorance. He also advised Acyutananda to study the history and tradition of Gauda Vaishnavism and the evolution of Sankirtana movement. Acyutananda took the advice. It was a good assignment. His intelligence felt sharpened, yet always in touch with Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, Sri Krishna, and their pastimes. He studied Krishna's eightfold daily pastimes, not to remember them, but to understand, according to the acharyas, how, why, and when they were meant to be read and remembered. By doing so, his purified mind became more and more absorbed in Krishna's eternal pastimes and how Lord Chaitanya has tasted them. One night, as he lay down to sleep, his mind brimming with thoughts of Krishna, Acyutananda realized that Pushta Krishna has tricked him by asking me to study Prayojana Tattva. Prabhu was cleverly bypassed my reluctance to hear Krishna's pastimes and immersed me in them instead. Acyutananda spoke to his mentor, who just smiled and replied, "You are a pure-hearted Vaishnava. Krishna wants to display his pastimes in your heart. To be careful is good, but don't boycott the Lord or his gopis."
There's a footnote there.
Yeah. Practices of devotional service at any stage of advancement should be undertaken with clear knowledge of foundational principles, methods, and purposes. This will ensure that devotees avoid obstacles to devotion and achieve the best results from their efforts.
Yes, so you see what's happened here. Acyutananda was very reticent, especially after the incident with Gaura Hari. But Pushta Krishna saw that, he didn't want him to boycott the subject of Prayojan Tattva, which is prema and rasa. So therefore, he told him to study the subject. Some will study and read the subject in order to remember, but Acyutananda's initial approach was not as to AET's Nam Bhajan, but just to understand it, Krishna's Astakaliya Leela. But just that contact with that, then he felt attracted. He felt felt the attraction to that subject. So it's interesting how nice that Pusta Krishna had tricked him, yeah, as he understood to study Prayodhana Tattva. Yeah. Anyway, any questions or comments on that? Okay, let's doing well. Perhaps you can read on. Over.
Pusta Krishna reassurance invigorated Acyutananda's already burgeoning attraction for hearing Vrajalila. As he again began to hear, his attachment to Krishna and the Vrajavasis suddenly blossomed like a dormant spring flower bud. It seemed to Acyutananda that the devotional acts of Kirtana, Japa, Bhagavatam class, as well as preaching were rivulets leading to a common ocean. Krishna and attachment for these practices, like a magnifying glass, simply expanded his attachment to the Lord. The many things he had dutifully studied about Lord Chaitanya and Sri Krishna now seemed to possess his mind, which, like a leaf tossed by a gusty wind, would be spontaneously carried away by thoughts of them. Sometimes during the japa period, he would be lost in reverie, which younger devotees mistook for sleep. Sometimes during kirtana, he felt overwhelmed and tears flowed down his cheeks. Sometimes he felt the plight of a conditioned soul so much that his humble, heartfelt pleas to them to surrender would startle his listeners. Some devotees were puzzled by Acyutananda's behavior, but Pusta Krishna reassured them, "Don't worry, he is advancing in Krishna consciousness and will soon master his emotions."
Yeah, I think he's, I think anyway, let me read on, it might explain different, but I think now he's moving into the stage of a Shakti. So he's experiencing, he's experiencing spiritual emotions, kind of the seed of bhava. So in the beginning stages, it's quite overwhelming to him. Instead, it's like a ship tossed away in his different waves. So he's quite, I don't know. So as it says here, he needs to master his emotions, so to speak, and make them more internal. Yeah, as we've been reading in our studies in Sudha Bhakti Chitamani. Let's pray we come to this. Let's pray that we have that problem at some point where we have to control our emotions. I'm sure some of you do at some points. We get quite emotional in our devotional practices. It happens, but here it's the real thing, stage of bhava. Anyway, can continue unless there's any other comments.
Yeah. Acyutananda soon realized that without systematizing his remembrance of Krishna, he would be hard-pressed to control it and the emotions it stirred in him. At first, he recalled verses and prayers from the books of Raghunath Das Goswami and Srila Rupa Goswami, and later on remembered Lord Chaitanya's eightfold pastimes, followed by those of Lord Krishna. Although he felt his heart to be like an active volcano, ready to erupt at any moment with lava-like emotion, Acyutananda gradually gained mastery over it. He regained his composure and appeared to devotees and guests to be his old self. But he was far from that old self. He could feel Krishna's presence, though he could not see him. He could perceive that Krishna was calling him, though he was not yet able to hear him. No, he could never be his old self. Acyutananda was now intent on being his real self, his original self. And as careful as he was in the practice, Acyutananda could not help but feel that his original self was that of a gopi. At developed stages of attachment, asakti, attraction to Krishna becomes so strong that it begins to overpower the regulative motives, such as reasoning and adherence to rules, for hearing about and remembering the Lord. Acyutananda's devotion thus became increasingly governed by raga and less so by vaidhi. By Lord Chaitanya's grace, the devotees' moods of Rajabhakti become so substantial that devotees are naturally drawn to a certain service mood. In Acyutananda's case, to that of a gopi.
Okay, so perhaps any reflections on this? Questions?
I think it's quite hard. A lot of you performing your devotion service, there's a lot of thinking, feeling, willing, all going on inside, and wow, it's a lot of hard work.
Yeah, but this is, I mean, yeah, but this is the natural development that I think there's Bhava Rupa and Chesta Rupa. In the beginning, our devotional practice is governed by external activity. It doesn't mean we stop external activity, but really there's not much internal rasa, or you could say bhava. But then later in spiritual life, then there's this bhava rupa, where there's this internal feelings and emotions, because that's what Krishna consciousness is about, pure emotions for Krishna. So now he's learning to manage to, he's relishing this raga, and he's becoming, he has an intrinsic, or he has a natural affinity for gopi bhava. So this is all happening, but Krishna's not shown himself to him. So he's nice that he's feel Krishna's calling him. So yeah, I mean, it's not, I can say, you said it's hard work. It's not, I don't know if that's the right way to describe it.
Yeah, I didn't mean it like hard work. It's like a lot going on. Like I was thinking, okay, those who can, like you learning slokas, and those who can learn slokas, read so many books and understand that kind of level thing. What happens to the ones who are simple-minded and they just performing this devotional service and going along, you know? How would they understand at different levels, you know? Because they're not into learning slokas and understanding
Well,
them.
it's not, well, learning slokas is not absolutely required for remembrance as such. For instance, Krishna's Radha Krishna Astakalya Leela.
Yeah.
A devotee who may not have the attitude for learning slokas may just read the book every 2 days, or may just read it often. They're just attracted to reading it. So they just become familiar with it. They don't necessarily, and they will remember the outline, but it's not like you have to learn each word. You understand? Some devotees will actually do that. They will learn verses that describes Radha Krishna's pastimes, that describe Krishna's, flute playing or his form. And some may, but if some others may not have that same aptitude, but they like to hear it, so they may just read it. No, just the other day I was listening to, again, I've mentioned him before, Indraduma Swami, and he mentioned one Rajstava Leela by Sanatana Goswami. And this is in the class he gave some time ago. But he just mentioned in passing that he really likes that book and he reads it every 2 days. So he's practicing Raganuga Southern. He just happened to say that he reads it every 2 days. So he's become familiar with the pastimes. He's become familiar with what's described there by Sanatana Goswami, but he's not necessarily memorizing it. You see, you understand? So, but we do have to know about Krishna's pastimes. Obviously, it's the International Society for Krishna Consciousness, but you don't have to. It's not as if you have to learn it like a sloka. It's not that. You just read it often. You just read it. It may, for some, you may read it. Depends on read it to help your chanting, to help your service, or help because you're just naturally attracted to it and you like to read it. So to make it familiar, you just read it often. You read about these things often. Yeah? That means your sadhana is changing, what you read and hear. Anyway. It is that clear, yeah? Is that clear about that?
Yes.
Yeah. You don't have to memorize every syllable.
That's why when I said it's hard, meant like it's quite difficult if you're not in that kind of mood, you know.
Well, it's not, yeah, if you're not in that mood, but it's not difficult because it's completely natural. Because it's the real nature of the soul. So it's not difficult at all. It's natural to be attracted to Krishna. Yeah? It's the most natural thing we can ever experience. Everything else is unnatural in comparison to that. All right, what's the time? It's 6:58. Perhaps we'll pause there, shall we?
We have.
Sorry, Samudhara, you didn't get a chance to read, but
It's okay, Prabhuji.
you had
Maybe
your hand up.
yeah, maybe tomorrow.
Yeah, please put your hand up for next reading. But
Okay.
you did very good and nicely. So should we stop here, isn't it? We're stopping here where I'm putting this highlighter. Yeah, is that correct? Yes.
Yes. So.
All right. So this story is still going to unfold. You're going to hear about Acyutananda and I think Gaura Hari coming into Bhava and then how they managed that. It's very interesting. We're going to hear about that. Okay. So thank you, everyone. We have 14 devotees with us today, hearing and sharing this wonderful reading. So thank you for joining us. Hope you find it enlivening to hear. Certainly very intriguing. Very nice, isn't it, to hear this? Right.
Yes, very sweet.
Yeah, very sweet. That's good
Very
description.
sweet.
Right.
Thank
So-
you, Master.
Sorry?